Well, the recent data shows that 63% of voters, might even be more at this point, want an alternative to Democrats and Republicans in the political system. Well, everybody, of course, now knows that the system is rigged in favor of Democrats and Republicans in more than one way. You've got the fact that Democrats and Republicans are controlled by the people with the most capital, and because our elections are wholly dependent on big capital, it's kind of a no-win scenario for alternative parties. You also got the media, and the media is funded by these two parties because you got Fox News, that's the propaganda arm of the Republican Party. MSNBC is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. CNN, ABC, CBS, they're all kind of like propaganda arms of both. And then you get the print outlets, the Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times, things like that. And of course, you got some of the other ones, Axios, Politico, ones like Vox, ones like that. But there's another reason why some, what I call specialty parties, okay? Why voters don't take specialty parties seriously. And it's for that very reason. Because these other parties tend to find their little niches, you know what I mean? They tend to find their little areas of interest that they push in their platform front and center that most Americans either don't know about, don't care about, a mix of both, and they tend to use these messages in a way that overshadows what Americans actually do care about. Now, that's not to say that these other specialty parties don't care about those issues. They do, in a big way. But a lot of times when you have these specialty issues that most Americans really don't know or don't care about, it can tend to stick out like a sore thumb in the platform, and then it's kind of like, well, are they not serious? Are they really going to look out for me? Are they going to do this, that, and the other? And then, of course, you've got the fact that they don't have the best messaging. They don't have a lot of funding, aside from the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party does have some big money backing it. But other than that, you've got other parties in the country. So let's go through this first. We are a multi-party country, okay? A lot of people don't know this, but it's true. We do have the Democrats and the Republicans. That's two. Those are the two that most everybody knows. We've also got independents, the largest bloc in the country, okay? But they're not an actual party, but for the sake of, identifying groups, we're going to say they're the third bloc, okay? So then you've got Democrat, Republican, Independent. You've got Green Party. That's right. That's the party I'm affiliated with. You've got the Movement for a People's Party. I also run with them a little bit as well. So that's 5. Then you've got the Libertarians. Then you've got the New Forward Party. Andrew Yang just started. That's 7, okay? And then you've got the Socialist Party. You've got the Democratic Socialists of America. You've got the Communist Party. That's right. We do have a Communist Party. So far, that's 10 parties that we have. 10! And we have 2 running the whole system. Does that sound democratic to you? Me either. So what I wanted to talk about here was a few things. Number one, I wanted to address the problem with specialty parties. And as I mentioned before, they tend to focus on certain topics that are niche areas, just specialty areas of interest. For instance, the Green Party tends to focus a lot, where they really, really shine is on foreign policy. And of course the environment, that's really what they're most known for. But they really hit home when it comes to foreign policy. But they tend to make that a very niche issue, okay? They scream at the top of their lungs on certain things like when, the U.S. illegally bombs a foreign country, as they should, but they tend to be like, them and the Libertarians tend to be the only ones that are really making any noise about it, okay? And this is where Libertarians kind of make, strange bedfellows, as it were, with Greens, as well as other leftist groups, and also some on the right who just want to see the wars end and stop invading countries willy-nilly. And then, of course, you have the messaging problem. Now, the thing is, the Green Party especially keeps trying to tell people, it's very easy, just vote for the Green Party. What they're not taking into account is how voters are conditioned to vote for either Democrats or Republicans. It goes back to the Pavlov's dogs experiment. And for those of you who don't know about that one, it's the experiment where Dr. Pavlov would ring a bell and his dogs would not know what to do at first, but he kept feeding them afterwards. And over time, when they heard the dinner bell, That's what they did. They started salivating and either coming towards him or just waiting impatiently for their food. But they knew what was coming after that bell. They were going to get fed, right? Well, what do we have in this case? We have the media, of course, presenting to us Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, because the Democrats and Republicans are buddy-buddy and they're kind of like in cahoots with the various media outlets. So that's all that people hear about because that's what they push. It's one of the reasons why they're using their money, their influence and power to kind of suppress independent media and get these social media platforms like YouTube, like Facebook, like Twitter to just push them and kind of push all the other independent outlets and other parties down into the haystack somewhere. So that's becoming a problem. You've also got the problem of certain parties just not putting up good enough candidates, you know? Because I heard this a lot from people when I tell them I'm with the Green Party, and that's that, well, nobody votes for them because their candidates are terrible. That's actually not entirely wrong, okay? I agree with the platform with some of these candidates that are coming up, but overall, they're just not viable on the national level because they don't know how to reach that broad of an audience. Because again, they're specialty parties. They just reach a small subgroup of people who care about those issues, and it really doesn't get beyond that. So if these parties want to get electorally successful, number one, they're going to have to start embracing the broader view of politics in this country. They're going to have to start focusing on the issues that people really, really, really care about. And most importantly, if they do manage to get their message out there, they're going to have to start lumping Democrats and Republicans in as the same party. Corporatists. Use Noam Chomsky's logic. The Democrats and Republicans are the corporate party, so you can call them corporatists. Okay? Start the conditioning process towards voters. What you got to do is you have to understand voters. See, like the Green Party, for instance, and I would imagine libertarians would support this as well. A lot of other parties do, and some Democrats, is ranked choice voting, right? Ranked choice voting is effective. It works. They have it in Maine already. They do it in certain cities all across the country. I know that the city of New York City just instituted ranked choice voting. But it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time to get people reconditioned to this new system. And that said, I think the only real way to get people introduced to a multi-party system as quickly as possible is to have somehow a joint effort. If this is a long shot, but if pulled off, it could work. Democrats, Republicans come together and they leave the Democratic and Republican parties and join a slew of other parties. Okay? So let's say you had people running as Democrats winning, people running as Republicans winning, all of whom want to see the duopoly shattered. Well, it's simple. Once they win, they band together and they split off from the two parties, and the Republicans would go join like the Libertarians, become independent, the Forward Party members, maybe even some sort of like Patriot Party or whatever. If you're a Democrat, or these Democrats want to break off, and they join, say, the Greens, the DSA, the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, the Forward Party, whatever it might be. Introduce multiple parties in one strategic hit like that. And right away, the whole system is blown up because the two parties are no more. Now, if you have the two parties at one moment and all these representatives come together and blow it up by joining other parties, now all of a sudden, the whole infrastructure of the government has to change. And this goes to the other point that you've got to have the numbers to do this. So we've got to have at least 50% of Republicans and Democrats in there that want to see the two-party system broken up. And more parties added and more democracy expanded, actually getting democracy in this country for once. But that's the only way I can see it happening. And it's not impossible. It's just it takes a lot of strategizing, a lot of coordination, a lot of willpower, because you're going to have a lot of pushback. And this would be so glorious. I'm just being hypothetical here for a minute. If you really did this, okay, and you had a bunch of different parties all at once and the media took note of this, they would not know what to do. they would not know what to do. They would be pointing fingers, they'd be blaming, they'd be screaming, they'd be running around. It would just be so funny. But then their money train is kind of blown up in smoke as well, because now the Democrats and Republicans no longer have the leverage. Now it's the people who have the leverage, regardless of political identification. So then you have to show the people, here's what we have in mind. We're gonna pressure the remaining Democrats and Republicans to come to the table and say, you ain't getting anything done until you pass universal health insurance, ranked choice voting, you reform and get rid of the electoral college. You basically get rid of the electoral college. You end all your wars. You instituting UBI is something that's gaining in popularity too. I actually support that, so I guess they could add that in there. But just like this whole list of demands that materially improve people's lives, they do all of that. And also, by the way, pass the 28th Amendment to get money out of politics. That would be another one. And once they do that, then they can focus on other things. And they would have the numbers. If we get up to 50% of the congressional body to do that, you've got them by the balls. Because now you're the people with the multiple parties are holding all the cards. You just have to be united around that core set of goals. So that's my advice on that. But right now, we have to recognize that in order to get a multi-party system in this country, we need to address the messaging with these other parties. They have to start putting front and center solid plans, putting all their efforts into pushing out there, getting people talking, getting people elected. I know the Libertarian Party of Texas is actually making some pretty big headway down there. A lot of counties in Texas are now, starting to grow more libertarian than Republican, which is, I think, an improvement. I do think that's an improvement, and I wish the Libertarian Party of Texas the best on that front. I hope they succeed in what they're doing. But it's funny enough, the Green Party is actually based in Texas. So there you go. They already have, like I said, ranked choice voting in Maine. I remember seeing some ads for some Green Party candidates, not only in Maine, but elsewhere. And the most consistent areas where I saw ads for specialty party candidates were where they had ranked choice voting. So as you can see from that, it becomes a little easier to get your message out there when you somehow unite to blow up the establishment and its scheme to keep the two-party duopoly in place. The best way to do that now, one more time, is to have a coalition of Democrat and Republican candidates, and if they win, you can get at least 50% of the numbers on both sides, all right? They automatically leave the Democratic and Republican parties. They join other parties and introduce right then and there a multi-party system. Because then the corporate establishment in Congress and the Senate have no choice but to come to the table and listen to the demands of the people. Because we'll have the leverage then. So that's my take on that. I really think this is something that people should be looking into, and I really want these other parties to expand and grow and really start to grow democracy in the country, because we really don't have it right now, and we need it now more than ever.